Welcome everyone to TriTech University. My name is Bill Steppen, and today we're going to continue on our exploration of the online contract functions. Last week we kind of explored the functions of getting started with online contracts. I like to think of online contracts as an equation where schools plus instruments equals rentals. And we looked at that first part of the equation, kind of setting up the schools with the districts that they're in and the teachers that teach at them. And today we're going to take a look at the second part of that equation, which is the instruments and everything that goes along with them. The grades, the delivery options, the accessories, and the maintenance plans. But as always, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's talk about some housekeeping stuff. So, once again, as always, over to the right is the Chat tab next to the Playlist tab. You're going to want to click to that, where down at the bottom of that chat area is the nickname button. Feel free to click that, put in your name, and then using that chat function is how you will be able to talk to me, to say hi, to ask any questions that you have. You can also help each other out if you're all there in the chat area and maybe someone has a question that I don't see right away and it's something that you handle or that you've had some experience with. We're a community here and we always help each other out. So, with that being said and in mind, let's go ahead and switch over to my screen where I pretty much left it just as is since our last session. So once again, just really quick summary to get back to where we were at. In the modules and active e-menu is the contract setup launcher, and everything regarding online contracts is found here. So last week we talked about the districts and the schools and the teachers, and so if you need a refresher on that, the video recording of that is over in the recent live streams playlist, as well as the, I believe, the Active E and long-term contract playlists as well. So you can find it in multiple places. So today we are going to, like I said, continue on and take a look at the inventory side of things. Hey Rich, how you doing? Good to see you. Okay, so let's start with inventory grades. Now, inventory grades can mean a number of things. As you might see up here, I've got some very basic inventory grades. What we mean by grades is just how you differentiate different levels of instruments. That's probably the bad word. Let's not use the word levels, but different conditions, if you will, of inventory. So say, for example, and again, we're focusing on the music industry here, but let's say if you are renting a flute and you wanted to differentiate one price level from another. Again, level's bad word, but one condition that you might rent versus another type of condition. Hey Tracy, good to see you. Welcome. I think this might be your first live stream. I wish I had a horn to honk or a bell to ring. Where was I? Okay, so yeah, conditions. As you can see, I've just got some basic ones here. New, like new, premium, economy, things like that. And you can see it's very, very straightforward. You simply click the add button, you give it a description, and then you hit save. Now, what some stores like to do is either in addition to or in lieu of these types of options, you might have a condition or a grade for student versus step up versus professional, or just kind of some things like that. Basically, these are choices that you can give your customers when they get to the point where they say, oh, I'm renting a flute. Okay, well, what condition of flute? Is it new for this price down and this price going forward? Or is it used for maybe a little bit less? Or is it a student for this price point? Or is it a step up for this price point? Or is it a professional for this price point? And then based on the choices that you give your customers and the selection that they make, you will then know, okay, they chose a step up level or grade of flute. We need to know to go grab the Yamaha versus the Gemeinhardt or whatever it might be. honestly, I'm not a flautist. I was a trombonist when I was in school, and I never actually rented one. I just borrowed my brother's, so I'm a horrible example in that respect. But that's the idea of grade. We're going to see that more, probably not today, but next Tuesday when we kind of finally tie it all together. But just keep this in mind as we go forward. Okay, so that's grades. Let's talk a little bit about delivery choices. Now, delivery choices are the options that you're going to give your customers when they get to the point where they decide, okay, I've chosen everything I needed to select. Now, how am I actually getting my rental? We've got some basic options here, such as free school delivery, home delivery, store pickup. You can set up whatever delivery choices you want to give to your customers, and not every delivery choice has to apply to every different rental instrument. When we get to near the end of today's session, we're going to see how we can differentiate which choices belong to which instruments. For example, you may not want to have a home delivery option if you are renting double bass or just kind of things like that. You would prefer to deliver it someplace where you know you're not just going to leave it on a doorstep, or where you're not even sure if the instrument will fit through the door, or just kind of things like that. If you do charge for the delivery choice, then feel free to associate that with the appropriate non-inventory category, usually shipping or freight and handling. And then what would you normally charge for that type of delivery? Now, in most cases, we usually recommend just charging a flat rate. If the rate is more than or less than kind of the average of instruments, if you're kind of shooting for that average, maybe you make some, maybe you lose some, but having one choice usually is kind of better than having multiple choice or price points for like a home delivery choice or something like this. That's not to say that you're limited to that. You could potentially have a home delivery for, let's say, $20, and then a premium home delivery for $40. And obviously these prices are probably lower than what they should be in this day and age with the economy the way it is. But again, you could specify that some instruments get one type of delivery, maybe the standard delivery, and then some that are more expensive to ship, maybe they get the premium delivery choice at the higher price point. So you can specify which choices ultimately are paired with which instruments. Now, this also introduces a concept called default to selected, which, as you can see on my free school delivery, I have checkmarked here. The whole idea of this default to selected is when a customer gets to the point of the website where they are choosing their delivery option, if you would like to lead them towards a certain option, feel free to use this to specify or kind of pre-select for them the method that you would prefer that they use. If they want to choose a different one, by all means they can. But by checkmarking one of them as default to selected, if they make no choice, then they'll get that one. That's basically the idea behind that. So again, feel free to set up as many different delivery choices as you want. You can assign them to the instruments later. The other thing I want to mention is this requires location option. If you are a store that is going to actually have or does have multiple store locations, and you want to associate that with one or of the stores, in other words, let's say you've got 3 store locations and you're giving them the choice to pick up at a store, by checkmarking this requires location, the website will then know, okay, did you mean location A, location B, or location C? Did you mean Dubuque or did you mean Iowa City? Did you mean, the Bronx or the Queens location? Whatever it might be, you can specify that by having the location set up, and then of course checkmarking the requires location option. So that's kind of the last bit there. Let me know if there's any questions. I do want to move on because we got quite a bit to cover today. When it comes to maintenance plans, we're not so much specifying the the price of the maintenance plan, because we'll be taking a look at that on Tuesday. But when we talk about maintenance choices here, what we're really describing is what you call the maintenance plan. So if you have your you call it the instrument insurance policy or whatever it might be, you can specify that here in the description area. And once again, we have the option of defaulting to selected. We also introduce this whole concept of required here at this level. So depending on your store policy regarding maintenance, if you require them to have maintenance, then you would want to make sure that you check mark both default to selected and required. If you don't require the maintenance, but you would prefer that they opt out of the maintenance, then you don't check mark required, but you do check mark default to selected. So it basically starts as, hey, they're going to get maintenance unless they unselected, unless they check mark off the option for maintenance. If that is too risky and you've gotten in trouble with your parents or your customers in the past, oh, I didn't know I was going to pay for maintenance, I don't want to pay for that maintenance, even though obviously the good thing to do is to pay for maintenance. If that's too much and you would prefer that they opt into the maintenance plan, then don't check mark the default to selected option. So just kind of the idea behind that. The reason this is on a table structure as opposed to just what is it called is some stores, maybe not yours, but maybe someone out here, has one type of maintenance plan for their band and orchestra rentals, another type of maintenance plan for their jazz band rentals, a third type of maintenance plan for their rent-to-own plan or their rent-to-rent plan. Just basically you can specify what they're called here. And then once again, just like the delivery choices, you'll be able to pair and associate the description of a maintenance plan with the type of instrument to which it is married to. So that's the idea there. One more very similar table is accessories. And when we talk about accessories, what this is, as we can see here, is all of the different accessory add-ons that you offer to your customers to go hand in hand with their rental. And in most cases, this is usually things like mouthpieces, reeds, method books, things that will complement and enhance their lessons and their training. It's also things like music stands and care kits and gig bags and mutes and things that will enhance the ability for them to take care of their product and their rental, as well as to take care of the parents who have to listen to practice every night and encourage them to practice no matter how grating it might be. Actually, my daughter is doing really awesome with her piano lessons. I have to say, I love listening to her practice. It's just a fight to get her to do so. Do I have any parents out there who can relate? Anyway, that's the whole idea here. Again, once again, you can see that we can mark certain add-ons, accessories as default to selected and or required. And the whole idea typically here is you will just put in the SKU, and that by extension will pull in the description and the price. If you want to override that price here and make it be a special price that goes hand in hand with the rental, by all means you can do that. So that's the idea here. And once again, not to beat that dead horse, but you'll be able to pair accessory choices with the instruments, and that's what we're going to take a look at next. So, delivery, maintenance, and accessory are very similar in their setup, and this establishes a global table, which we will now see when we get to inventory choices. Your inventory choices are the actual rental instruments that you're going to offer your customers. I've got a bunch here kind of set up to use as demonstration. Now, there's a lot going on here, so I want to kind of pare this out and simplify it. When you first get into this table, it's going to be completely blank. You're not going to see anything here except for maybe in this middle area, because this is going to reflect those previous three tables that we just looked at, the delivery, the maintenance, and the accessory tables. If you have not yet set those up, you won't see anything here, but this will definitely be blank. You would start off by clicking the Add button. And when you click the Add button, you'll start up along top here where you will put in potentially a SKU, but definitely a description and a level. And we're going to talk about this in just a moment as far as what that level means. Now, I'm going to go back to the instruments that I already have over here because I'm going to use these as my explanation tool. Starting with the flute here, you can see that I've left the SKU blank and I've got description of flute level 1. And then down below, if we can kind of see this, hopefully you're seeing that. These are all of the deliveries, accessories, and maintenance plan options that were from that previous table. By default, nothing will be checkmarked here. The whole idea of this is you will checkmark which options, which accessory and delivery and maintenance choices go hand in hand with the instrument, in this case the flute. And as you can hopefully see, if I don't really have a way of expanding this list out, but you can see that I've got things checkmarked that would be appropriate. The flute method book, the flute care kit, music stands, free school deliveries, home delivery, store pickup and maintenance. What I don't have checkmarked are things that wouldn't apply. Sax method book, reeds, sax care kits, things like that. So by checkmarking at the very least the option for that choice, that will associate that line item with that instrument. Now, there's two columns here, one that is optional and one that is default. We're going to get more into this next Tuesday, so I don't want to get too much into what is which right now. Just know that if we go ahead and let's say, for example, let's say that reeds do apply to flutes in some crazy far-off world. You'll notice if I checkmark reeds, it checkmarks optional but not default. If I uncheck that, and let's actually sort this by description so they don't jump around, because it defaults to being sorted by optional, and if I checkmark it, then it kind of jumps them around there. So if I checkmarked optional, it does not checkmark default. If I checkmark default, then it will also checkmark optional, and if I uncheck optional, it will also uncheck default. So what I mean by all that, again, I'll get more into this next week, Tuesday, but just know that if something should apply to an instrument, make sure you at the least checkmark optional. What I would typically recommend is checkmark optional for things that apply to the instrument typically. Maybe not for one teacher or another, but typically would apply for that instrument that we're renting, the flute in this case. If it's something that is universal, and what I mean by that is something that could be used regardless of the instrument type or regardless of the teacher that will be teaching the lessons of that instrument, checkmark default. Again, I'm going to get more into detail on that next week, but just keep that in mind. So that is the basic idea here. Now, I'm going to get back up here at the top where I kind of mentioned the whole SKU field here. If you are renting an instrument, and regardless of what specific model instrument it is, you rent them at the same rate. So maybe you have several different models of flute that you rent at the price point that you would rent them at. You rent your Selmers the same as you rent your Gemeinharts, whatever it might be. Leave this blank. If you want to be very specific on your setup and say that we rent Gemeinhart flutes and we rent Yamahas and we rent whatever's, Jupiters maybe, but they're at their own unique price points, by all means you can do that. That's going to require some additional levels, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But you, by all means, can then specify the SKU up here. If you're able to specify the SKU, what that ultimately means is it makes it easier for you to process the rentals. Because when a rental comes in for, in our example, let's say it's a Jupiter flute and it's SKU whatever, then it will already know, the customer wants to rent this. We know what the SKU is. Here are all the cereals that we have available to rent. Pick one. So it can definitely do that. If you leave the SKU blank, you can still pick from that list of cereals. You'll just need to know, we need to go and find what is the most, what's the most readily available cereal or model line that we're going to rent to satisfy this flute rental in this case. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, let's talk a little bit more about levels. If we look at my kind of instrument list here, we might see that flutes are at level 1, violins, regardless of the size, are at level 2, my piccolos are at level 1, my violas, regardless of the size, are at level 2, my guitars that I rent are at level 2, my saxophones are at level 4, as well as my baritones, my bell kits are at level 3. The whole idea of a level is to be able to group together multiple instruments that are rented at the same exact rates. I know a lot of music stores have done this in the past and continue to do so just to make life easier for both them and their parents, their customers. They might say, okay, here is our level 1 instruments, our group 1 instruments. We rent these at $30 down, $30 a month, and these are the instruments in that group or that level. Level 2 is at maybe a higher rate, and these are the instruments in that level. And group 3 or level 3 are these instruments. It's the same idea here. If you have some instruments that they rent at their own unique price point, they will have a level that is all to their own. No other instrument will share that level. Where does the level come into play, you ask? I hear you screaming without typing into your keyboards. Why, I'm glad you asked that. That is the plan and rate table, which is where we're going to wrap up today's session. On the plan and rate table, at a very minimum, you're going to have one plan, and this is kind of a bad example over here, but you might have a plan that you call your standard plan. And we got one here we call 3-month standard trial. You might also have other plans, but we're going to talk about just kind of a basic one that can be used universally. The most important part of getting started with the plan table is that you have something here with a blank code. And that will be something that is kind of used in most cases, if not all cases. The whole idea of this is whatever, regardless of the name and regardless of the code, whatever you have in here in months is how many months the first payment will be pushed out when you activate the rental. So in my example here, this is a 3-month standard trial. So whatever the customer pays for what's known as the down pay or the DP in this example, that'll be how much that we collect from them, and it pushes their first month of payment out 3. So if I started a rental tomorrow, which is Friday the 18th, then by extension, if I were to start that contract then, the first payment wouldn't be due until, let me do the math, April, May, June 18th. So that's just kind of the idea behind that. Now, if your customer plan that you offer for your rentals covers the full 9 months of the rental, then by all means you'd make this be 9. As far as like the whatever your plan is for your particular flavor of rental plan. But this is where the grades come into play. I forgot I was going to talk about the plan table today. So you might have the same level on here multiple times, and just associate them with different grades. The way this works, because again, this will be empty when you first come in here, you would start by clicking the Add button and filling in the name of your plan, the potential code, which again, I would recommend leaving blank, and then how many months the down payment covers. And then there will be an individual Add button where you can fill in combinations of level, grade, potentially contract default, and then how much is the down payment, how much is the maintenance from the down payment if they opt into or are required to take maintenance, and then how much is the ongoing or monthly payments, and how much is the maintenance on that month-to-month basis, or whatever your payment stream is. If you require a payment every 3 months, if you require a payment every 6 months, whatever it might be, this is that ongoing periodic payment in the monthly payment and monthly maintenance fields. So just to get back to my example of this 3-month standard trial, here you can see, here are the levels that I was referencing back on the inventory table. So anything that uses level 1, they will have 2 choices when the parent gets to an instrument that's associated with level 1. Like new or new. New will be $30 down, $30 a month. Like new will be $25 down and $25 a month. If they opt into maintenance for their new rental, then that will be $5 down and $5 a month. If they opt into maintenance on a like new rental, that will be $4 down and $4 a month. So basically that's the whole idea there. And again, you'll just kind of want to keep that in mind. You may be bouncing back and forth quite a bit between your plan and rate table and your inventory table as you're setting this all up. And last but not least, as far as what I wanted to cover today, this little checkbox here that says OOS, that's short for out of stock. So if you get to a point where your level 1 like new instruments are gone and there's no more to rent, the only choices left are new, then you would come here to this table, find the combination of level and grade on this list, and then by check marking OOS or out of stock and saving that, that will update that choice immediately on the website. So as soon as the customer gets to picking the flute or picking anything else that was level 1, the piccolo, anything else like that, they'll see the only option left is to rent at new. There is no more like new option because they were too late in getting to the option of putting in their rentals. So that's the whole idea there. So hopefully that will be helpful in kind of continuing to think about setting this up. I'm breaking this down, like I said, into hopefully bite-sized pieces. So again, last week we talked about districts, schools, and teachers. Today we just talked about grades, delivery, maintenance, accessories, inventory, and the plan and rate table. Next Tuesday, we're going to tie those 2 sections together with this inventory, accessory, school links, and then we will see how to actually process an incoming rental. I see that Tracy has a question. Can we set it to start a month plus some? For instance, rent today, but first payment isn't until May 1st, so we keep all payments on the 1st and the 15th. Really, Tracy, that's an excellent question. We're going to kind of answer that next Tuesday when we get into the processing of it. It's important to know, because I'm not sure if you were here on Tuesday of last week to kind of get this whole ball rolling, but as customers are going through this process and they are submitting these rentals, it's important to keep in mind that these should be considered requests. So they are requesting to rent a flute. They are requesting to rent a half-size violin. A half-inch violin? Oh, but they're requesting to rent that type of instrument. So it's not until you actually process it that it gets activated, and at that point you have the ability to make adjustments if necessary for days due or when the first payment is due or anything like that. So, but yeah, we'll definitely take a look at that next Tuesday. Like I said, we will wrap that all up and tie this up into a nice, hopefully neat ball of ribbon so that we can make this hopefully a nice, easy process for your customers. It might take quite a bit of setup on your side, but then we'll probably also talk a little bit about maintaining these tables as time progresses. So if you didn't get a chance to check out the whole concept of the schools, definitely go back to the recent live streams tab or playlist up here in the right corner. When you first go into the video portal, that's where you'll start. But right now you'll see there's a video option here. Don't click on it right now because then I'll lose you. But on the video tab, in the playlist selector in the upper right where it defaults to saying Quick Start Playlist, you'll be able to click on that. And you'll have all types of choices. You'll want to go to recent live streams or Active E or long-term contracts. This is where these videos will be found. So last week's will be there. Today's will be there as soon as I get the chance to wrap up and process this recording and get it uploaded, as will next Tuesday's. They'll all be in that same spot, 1, 2, 3 in that order. Technically on the recent live streams one, they'll be in a reverse order because it's always the most recent live stream at the top, kind of in that reverse chronological order. But on all the other playlists, they'll be in a more appropriate order, so that when you, if you choose the autoplay option, they'll just go one after another, and you'll be able to watch them all without having to click the next one. So hopefully this is all making sense. Let me know if you have any additional questions between now and then. You can always email me at training@tritechretail.com. If you need a more immediate answer, our support team is always happy to help out. You can give them a call and say, hey, Professor Tritech was talking about this. Can you elaborate on this? Or we do things a different way. Can you maybe help me out with that? We're more than happy to help any way that we can. And if you're looking for the upcoming playlists, the upcoming live streams outside of the online contracts, the playlist option here on this screen next to the chat option will show you the schedule for the month of April. And up at the top right is the poll option. Again, don't click on that right now because you'll leave the live stream. But if you'd like to suggest certain topics for these live stream broadcasts, by all means go to the polls area and make your submissions there. You can see any recent submissions, you can vote on those, you can add your own comments to them, and I always take those into consideration. Really, I try to rely on those because I want these live streams to be relevant to what you're wanting to learn. So let us know how we can help out. Glad that you were all able to make it today. We'll see you next Tuesday, and I hope you can make it a good one. Take care.